All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm your host today, Brad. I'm back after missing the last one. I was pretty sick. Back with Megan. How you doing, Megan?
Good. How about yourself, Brad?
Much better than last week. And then we have a guest on with us today, Ted Peterson, who's a CISO at DataSite. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
So we like to kick it off with talking about, what do we do outside of work? I think mental health is a really important thing, and doing things that you enjoy are important. So we'll start with Megan. What are you working on?
Sure. I guess since it's kind of the holiday season for me, the nice thing about that is we've got a puzzle table out with a jigsaw puzzle going, which has been nice because I know last time I think I talked about playing the video game The Long Dark, which has been a lot of fun. But sometimes it takes some time to get into playing a video game. So doing some puzzling when you just have a few free moments feels pretty nice. Or even the other night, I was like, I got 45 minutes. I could play my video game and probably stay up too late, or I can just work some jigsaw puzzles. So I made the right choice and did some
There's
puzzle
something,
instead.
yeah, there's something very therapeutic about that. I tried the long dark, and it was too stressful. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think at least for me, once you get past the initial like, how am I going to survive? Then you start to figure it out. But there was a close call I had recently where I literally cheated and was like, I should not have cut that piece of wood for the last hour. I am now in the middle of a blizzard. I don't know how to get back to my shelter. Quit game before it auto saves on me. Try that again because I am going to die.
That's funny. What about you, Ted? What do you do for fun outside of work?
I have too many hobbies that are all expensive. I love golf, motorcycles. I was just telling you earlier about music. I sing in a men's chorus, the Apollo Club of Minneapolis. It's a 130-year-old men's chorus, and that has been probably the greatest thing for my mental health for the past. It's going on 8 years now. So,
Oh,
yeah, the singing in the Apollo Club has really been a godsend to me. It's been a great release. It's 2.5 hours of rehearsal on a weekly basis where I can just focus on the music, and then it's resonating in my head for the rest of the week. So I appreciate
awesome.
that as an outlet.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been playing video games. I just started. Was it Talos Principle 2?
Hmm.
Pretty interesting concept. So I'm enjoying it. I like the puzzle solving of it.
Right,
Nice.
right.
I haven't played those games. I don't think I've seen Talos. Is that the second one in a
Yeah,
series then? Okay. I'm
yeah.
gonna have to check that one out.
It's pretty interesting. You come back, humanity is wiped out by a plague, and they create robots who are human. So it's like facing this existential whatever crisis. It's pretty anyway. But anyway,
How
Yeah.
does that resonate with anybody in today's day and age?
uh, yeah. So, but it's fun. It's a good stress relief, and I enjoy the puzzle factor of it. And so,
Mhm.
so Ted, we got you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you got to where you're at? We met you at Hacks and Hops. You were a speaker there, so we can talk about that a little bit. But just give
Yeah,
listeners a little bit of a background and where who you are.
sure. Um, Again, my name's Ted Peterson. I'm the CISO at DataSite. I've been here for, it will be 7 years in July, next July. So 6.5 currently, and I've enjoyed a great deal of opportunity here at DataSite. I was hired as the Director of Information Security and then promoted to CISO. It'll be 2 years ago in January, and the experience has been fantastic. It was a culmination of where I've been heading my career for the past few years, trying to build my experience set and skill set to take on this role, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity. It's exciting. Again, I sell everybody on my team particularly when I'm hiring, that this is an opportunity-rich environment. There's whatever you bring to the table will be improving and leveling up this program. So I've had some great experiences in my career. I worked for a company, Big Red in town. So I was there pre-breach, during breach, and post-breach. And that experience was really what sort of set me off on this path of, okay, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my career. And then when I looked back at the previous experience, I realized that I've been a security professional my entire career. I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. I started off in college. I was as an intern as a mechanical engineer and draftsman at a gray iron foundry, and I was basically forced into IT support because we didn't have an IT team. So we had a bunch of engineers and nobody wanted to learn how to support their own environment. So it was myself and a mentor of mine who took that responsibility on. And then I parlayed that into a career after college and sort of got out of the mechanical engineer and drafting business, which I was okay with. I really enjoyed the problem solving, like you were talking about the video game that really intrigued you. That's what I really enjoyed about mechanical engineering. I was given a production problem, asked to solve it, and I really enjoyed that. But I could also see that it would get very tiresome and tedious, and I don't know that I could have done that for long term. And then here I am as a CISO, and guess what I'm doing? I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm solving problems and doing very much of that same process. But it's I appreciate it in a different light here. It's much more suited to my personality and capabilities. So, pardon me. The sort of my background is mostly IT and some business, and then I sort of parlayed that and steered my way into information security. One of my mentors back in the day told me that information security was really where her heart was, and she couldn't wait to get into it and build her experience set there. At the time I met her, she was a business analyst, and I just shook my head thinking, that sounds boring. What you described, I can't imagine doing that for a living. And then here I am. She's still a mentor and friend, and I've been in information security basically ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, that really resonates with me too. Like one of my first jobs in IT was with legal pad or a notebook or oh my gosh, clipboard, doing
Mm-hmm.
Y2K patches and writing down the serial number, the room number, the date that it was done, and just it just realized looking back, it's like, hey, I was doing security even across all my jobs just because it was the right way to do it.
Yep. I was the Y2K project manager. I took over in October of '99. No pressure because it was the month that I had gotten married. Taken over that role because they had a person leave the organization. So I took on the mantle for driving the program across the finish line. I remember sitting in our innovation center, playing on my PlayStation 2 that we had set up in that room. And then I think it was 5 minutes before midnight, we all walked back there and watched nothing change, and then
You're
came
right.
back and yep, played more PlayStation, ate some more pizza, and then I think we headed out like 1:30 or so. Yep, it's amazing the experiences that we've had, and when you tie it all back together to realize that I actually do have a mission that I've been pursuing. I just wasn't able to articulate it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder, I'm kind of curious about your transition into the CISO role at DataSite,
Mm-hmm.
Ted. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I think there's probably a fair number of people that are interested in moving up to CISO, and so I'm kind of curious about your transition.
Yeah, what are they thinking? No, for me, it was quite a few years ago. I had been sitting with a mentor at lunch, and he asked me point blank, what did I want to do with my career? And I told him, I said, I'm pretty sure I want to be a CISO. I want to lead a security program. And he just looked at me and said, what are you waiting for? And that was sort of the kick in the pants that I needed to be like, to sort of look back and consider, what am I waiting for? I should probably put my foot on the accelerator to accomplish what I want to do with my career. I had been one who I wasn't aimless. I was capable. And sometimes there's a problem with that when you can't articulate what do you want to be when you grow up. If you had asked me as a kid, I would have said I want to be a pilot like my dad. And that was an easy answer for many, many years. And then my eyes went bad. And so being a pilot was out of the realm of possibility for me. So I just leaned on my experience and my skill set, and that turned into that mechanical engineering and drafting, into IT, into support, and I worked my way up through the organization through those paths. And then when I decided that security really was where I wanted to be in it, that I wanted to be a CISO, then I just looked around to determine who are the teachers and mentors and people that I want to emulate and frankly borrow from to move my own career forward. And I followed those paths. I listened, which is, I think, probably the strongest skill set that one needs to have in any role. And I listened. And then as I was pursuing my opportunities, I ended up at DataSite as the director of information security, and the individual that had hired me, a fantastic individual, and he basically laid it out and said, "Look, you're the succession plan if you prove not to be a moron, and that you can do what the organization needs to do." And that ended up being the path. He had to leave the organization, and the opportunity availed itself, and I stood up and said, "I want this." And the organization responded and said, "Great, you'll earn it." And I did. And that's basically the short story of it. But lots of work and experience and trust goes into that. And now my job is to make this meaningful, right? I've accomplished one of my personal goals and professional goals, but that just means that you have to rewrite the goals, right? You have to articulate, where am I headed from here? I'm not ready to retire yet, even though my hair color would say otherwise. So I still have work to do, and I have things that I want to accomplish, and the organization needs more work. So like I say, it's opportunity rich. So there's always things that I could do and can do and should do. And those are the things that I will be pursuing. So that's how I got here.
Were there any surprises for you going from? I mean, it sounds like you knew your manager, this previous CISO, fairly well, but were there surprises when you had to step into that role yourself, going from director to CISO?
Yeah, I think you're shielded a little bit of the leadership team and sort of their struggles and stressors. So when you are an individual contributor or a mid-level manager, you don't necessarily get a peek behind the curtain. On occasion you do, and it really depends on the transparency level of the person above you in the org chart. So I had a little bit of visibility to that, but I think what surprised me most was, really what does go on behind the scenes, and the things that leadership does wrestle with. Um, and having direct knowledge of that now, it really helps put things into perspective. So I think it allows me to be a better leader for the folks that are in my organization. I do the best I can by either trying to be as transparent as I can be without oversharing or getting myself in trouble. Right? You do need to loose lips do sink ships, and so you have to be careful about what you share with the org. But it is a responsibility that I take very close to me, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But I would say that it's definitely the issues that leaderships struggle with. I think is probably the biggest surprise.
I think that's one of the areas in general that security struggles with, is communicating with leadership. And,
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have that CISO title, it makes it even harder to try to. It is so critical to the success of the security program to be able to build that relationship and the trust.
Yeah. I think one of my learnings from my career long term, though, has been that, learning from leading from whatever position you are in on the org chart is imperative. I remember being lower than whale poop at the bottom of the ocean on the org chart, identifying issues and surfacing them, saying this is a risk, or this is an actual vulnerability, or this is something that we should address. and feeling that if I wasn't heard, how do I change that? That's within my realm of possibility. It's not as though it's falling on deaf ears. It must be that I'm either not communicating it appropriately, or my message needs to be refined, and that's what really drove me to sort of work on that skill. Um, I think some of the leaders in my past, I've really benefited from the variety of their skill sets, experience, and behaviors, because I was able to address them appropriately wherever necessary and try to get my message across. And like you say, Brad, that communication piece towards leadership really is key.
Yeah, I think one of the things, kind of building on that I learned very early on is when you unearth a problem, don't just go and say, I found a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And say, hey, we found this, and here are some options. How should, this is my top choice, but here are the options. How should we address, how do you want to address it? Like, leadership does not want to hear, I have a problem. They want to hear, here's a solution for the problem.
Yes. I had that experience with some of my leadership back in my history, where we had somebody who was a clear advocate as a manager, wanted to advocate for his team, make sure that they got what they needed and were, I wouldn't say protected, but they were, insulated. They were like, he was an advocate for his team, which is noble, and I'm grateful for that experience. But often it was his response to leadership's demands was no, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know, particularly in information security, but this was just IT. If you don't come up with alternatives, that becomes an issue, and that's where you have to be able to map out. Okay, the answer is no, but here's some things that we could do, or here's some things that we can do in the direction of what you need. That was a great lesson that I learned early on in my career.
Yeah, I always said yes, but you can do that, but here are the risks, and here are alternatives.
Right.
That way you don't get known as the no man.
Correct.
And that happens.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Well, and there's a key in what you're saying too, of you need flexibility too, because if you come with one solution, but that solution you don't just keep shouting it over and over again, louder and louder, and increasingly frustrated. You have to hear, well, why doesn't that solution that I proposed work? How can we work together to collaborate to find a collaborative solution? And yeah, I think both of those things are big challenges for people, either just seeing it very one way, if you don't do it this way, or you don't do it now, or the way that I said, then that's your fault and too bad. But yeah, for a leader, you really have to be like, okay, well, why not? Ask the questions, be curious, a different kind of curiosity than maybe technical people who are used to asking the computer or trying to figure out with the computer, well, why didn't that work? Have to deal with people and business leaders too.
I think that I think my educational background helps there. There's lots of folks in our industry that are computer science majors, and I will not disparage them because they are brilliant. They're very technical skill sets or degrees. I've got a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies with a minor in Norwegian language and an MBA, and then how does that get me into security? Well, it's the experience, it's the work experience, it's the other things that I've done. And then I do have my CISSP. I did make sure that, I can have these academic accomplishments, but if I don't add to that and develop the other muscles, I'm not able to demonstrate to the marketplace of what I can actually bring to the table. I think that background of having a BA in American Studies allows me to bring a different perspective to problem solving. And it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of the narrative and those sorts of things. And I think if you can bring a different perspective, sometimes that can really change the conversation with people. I've worked with some really, really smart technical people, but sometimes they get mired in the ones and zeros. It is this way or it is that way. And sometimes it might be right down the middle, and we may have to plow our own ground. And that's going to be sometimes the solution. So I would say I look for, on my team, I look for people that have well-rounded backgrounds. I want some of those technical people. I want some of those computer science folks. I want some of those really deep, hardcore technical folk. And then I want some people that came to it from, I have an art history major. The best networking individual I ever worked with, his degree was in art history.
Yeah.
But he's a great network guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Like I don't. Well, Megan, yours is in art, right?
Yeah, my degree's in art also, so came at it sideways. And
Evan,
I
Evan.
remember even hearing some podcast from, I don't remember who, somebody came over from fashion design, and I remember still being like, wow, all the places to come from.
Oh,
Yeah.
like Evan got his in geology,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. That's not really as important as like that inquisitive
Hmm.
mindset. I had a boss one time that said that, and I sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but not trying to. But he said, "You're amazing at seeing around the corner," and
Hmm.
that's the mindset you have to be
Yeah.
successful. Is not just ones and zeros, but okay, if I do this, what are the cascading effects?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and I think the diversity of thought is what I so greatly
Mhm.
value. There are some folks that just get mired down in details and stuck, the analysis paralysis, because they're used to seeing things through a certain perspective. And, I remember I had a leader that her background was in organizational design. And I was like, what are you doing in technology? And she's like, they have organizations too. And I bring my skill set to that. And she was right, a fantastic perspective to have in the workplace.
Yeah. So your talk at Hacks and Hops was about basically TLDR, hiring to replace yourself, or
Yeah,
training the staff to be able to be so you're replaceable. Is that
right.
fair?
Yeah, the title of the talk was "Working Yourself Out of a Job,"
There you go.
and
I
that was the basis of the talk was um, building your organization, your program, your team, your employees to work yourself out of a job, and it's sort of been my goal throughout my career is leave things better and move on, and somebody else will take it and take the ball even further.
yeah
And I have no misconceptions that I'm an expert in any field. I just do the best I can in the environment that I'm in.
yeah. Well, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and yeah. But I think the other thing that I've always said is, those people that I think we all know the IT person that won't relinquish anything.
Mhm.
Yes,
Because then they've got job security. It's like, well, yeah, but it also means you can never move up because there's nobody else that can do your job. You're stuck. Like,
correct.
you want to move and progress your career, you have to train somebody to take over for you.
Yep, yep. I had in my experience, I had an individual that I looked up to. They were above me in the org chart. They had a much deeper, pardon me, experience set. Their skills were far greater. And I looked at them and thought, I would like to take this direction. I want to learn from this individual. I want to go down that path. And they took umbrage. Uh, they
Mhm.
were not happy that they felt threatened by the fact that I wanted to learn from them, thinking that I was coming for their job. And
Mm,
in a way, they're correct. Yeah, I want your job, but I'm hoping that you'll move up. That was my impression, was that you probably have your own lofty goals and you should pursue them. What I didn't understand was some folks don't want to. They want to be where they're at.
they're happy where
And
they're at. Yeah.
yeah, and that tension was something that I had to learn from. Eventually, the individual left the organization, and it was fairly acrimonious, and I felt badly, but that wasn't my intention. I was not
Right.
trying to push the individual out. I just wanted to learn and work with them. And what I learned from that experience was that maybe I need to change my approach and how I demonstrate that. And sometimes probably just be direct. I want to
Mm,
learn from you. Would you teach me? And then what are your aspirational goals? And build that trust before, you know, uh, before that tension arises.
yeah. I know one of the things that Evan and I have talked about is like, how do we build that relationship with the other business units? And you know, get out of the office, go to lunch, get to know them as a person,
Yes.
right? Like it's not some super secret formula. It's get to
Yep.
know them and what inspires them, what drives them, because then
Hmm.
you now know how to communicate with those people. And okay, great, it just made my job so much easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the relationship part really is um, I think, an undersold capability that more folks need to have a higher EQ when they're in the workplace, or they're navigating a career. I've seen that's where I've seen the most friction is when folks aren't paying attention to that element.
Yeah.
I wonder, before we wrap up here, Ted, do you have any? It sounds like you've had a number of mentors in your career. Any tips or suggestions for somebody that's maybe trying to find a mentor for themselves?
Yeah, I think Brad touched on it with that whole get to know people. That's one way. Um, the way that I was able to identify a lot of those mentor characters in my life, and sometimes that it didn't come with that title. Sometimes they had that role without it ever being sort of official or articulated. They just sort of had um, that role in my life or career. Uh, I think the way that those things happen are the individual that is looking for assistance or guidance or that vertical leadership and mentor type role. You need to be clear and direct with sort of what you are trying to accomplish and what your own goals are, and then reach out and be willing to ask for help, be willing to articulate what you're looking for and what you need. Um, there are some people that are just going to shut you down, and
Mm.
that's okay. They don't have to help, right? Nobody's obligated to do so. But what that should tell the individual who's seeking is that, all right, that's not the person for me. Let's look for somebody else who emulates or has behaviors that I would like to add to my toolkit. Um, I was fortunate enough in my career to have some really fantastic, good characters in my life to to look up to and say, you know what, I like how that person leads, and when I progress in my career, I want to behave like that, or I'd like to have elements of that uh, that people look up to. Um, and those characters really did play a fantastic role in my development. There are others that are like, I will not be like that person.
Yes.
My dad gave the example. He was a pilot in the Navy, flew his whole career, but he gave an example of a leader of what not to be, and that was when he walked onto the flight deck, walked up to the aircraft that he was going to be flying with the instructor, and the instructor stumbled out of the hangar. It was early morning, stumbled out of the hangar, leaned up against the fuselage, had a lit cigar, threw up all over the deck, and then lit the cigar and said, "Aviator's breakfast, cigar and a puke." And then my
Oof.
dad had to get in the cockpit with this guy and
Oh
fly
wow.
for a couple of hours. And he's like, that is not what I want to be as a flight instructor. And so when my dad got the opportunity to be a flight instructor, he was sober, he was clean, he was articulate and not foul, and was a fantastic instructor, I'm sure, because of his career and his capabilities. But that he learned how not to lead because of that experience, and he always brought up stories like that to sort of teach his kids, and I'm so grateful for that experience because that resonated with me in my career. I'd identify a behavior that, you know what, I'm not going to lead like that, or I don't
Mhm.
want people to have that impression of me at the end of this. I went through an incident early on in my career. We had just taken over an environment, and we were hit with a early virus. So this was web 1.0. We were hit with an early virus, took the entire organization down, and not a big deal because nobody was really dealing with web commerce at that point. Web commerce was brand new, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But the organization was down, so that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I had a manager who I was talking to in the middle of the night as I was trying to recover the company. He told me flat out, "It's time to pull a miracle out of your you know what." And then he slammed the phone down, and I was like, I'm here in the middle of the night trying to update you on the
Right.
status of this incident, and that's how you react. That is not a leader that I'm going to emulate in my career. And thankfully, I've never slammed the phone down on anybody or told them to pull a miracle, right?
So I add one thing real quick before we wrap up. Going on that mentor, it doesn't have to be in your direct field either. One of my best mentors I've had was an executive in a completely different non-technical role, but he helped
Mm-hmm.
me understand the business side of it and was able to give me some tips on that. And we met through a Washington Capitals fan club, so it doesn't have to be in IT. So
Right,
uh,
right.
Good point.
don't be afraid to take chances. So with that,
Absolutely.
we'll wrap up. Ted, this has been great. We always end with like a gratitude, a shout out to somebody. So I'll go to Megan first and give you a second to think about it. So Megan, who you got?
Okay.
I'm gonna shout out to my brother Tim today because he's on my mind because my son just did his first jazz band concert last night, and my brother, having played trumpet in the past, helped kind of get him there past the audition and maintain his trumpet as well. But also just I've appreciated having him around more now that they live locally and start to establish those relationships again as adults and get to know each other and just know that he's got my back when I need it. And I really appreciate that.
Nice. All right, Ted, spotlight's on you.
Yeah, this might sound cliche, but I will always give flowers to my wife. Without her, she's the glue of my life. She's also, um, I jokingly refer to her as the CFO at home, but she's the COO, the CFO. Um,
Is the
I get
C-suite.
all the technical stuff and all of the support structure and all of that noise. But without my wife, I could not do what I do. She affords me the time to go do professional things, to go, she allows me the freedom and flexibility to go sing, to help with my mental health, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. She's always looking out for me. She's very selfless, and I'm just so grateful to have her in my life. I could not do this without her or her support.
Nice.
So thanks, Nicole.
Very nice. This was a tough one for me because we've got so many good consultants. You know, Mia's doing good work, Joe's doing good stuff that I'm working on with. But I'm gonna give Dan a shout out. He took notes and wrote shadowed on an IR tabletop, and I challenged him and said, "Hey, do you think you can write the report? Here's the template. Here's examples of what I've done in the past. Are you up for this?" And he said, "I think so." And I got it, and it blew me away. He did. He absolutely crushed it. So shout out to Dan for saving me from having to write a report.
Fantastic.
Nice. Well, yeah, and kudos to you for giving him the opportunity. I'm sure he appreciated that as well.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and happy holidays. I'm not sure when this will go out. We are recording it before the holidays, but happy holidays for whatever you celebrate. Stay safe.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.